Gardens, City of Post Falls, City of Coeur d'Alene, they'll butt up against your boundaries. And you've just taken your transportation piece, so you're not coordinating with them, out of your coordination
That's a good point.
policy. Just playing devil's advocate.
No, it's good, because you're right. I mean, that's part of the including her, so we're talking about water parks and transportation solutions.
You can take her out.
Yes,
I don't
please,
even see her
please take
in
her
here.
out.
So where's
Take our
her
navy,
water?
take our navy out of it.
Take her out,
Right before the word water.
including her water.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
like, where is her water?
It's,
I just needs, just now. I'm still.
You don't like terms of endearment?
Yeah, no more terms of endearment.
No more mom, no more dad?
so seriously, I guess, I get your perspective. I guess my concern is I don't see Hayden pushing people out of cars, that's all.
Okay, and I'm just going to offer a perspective, and feel free to,
I know it's been done in the cities, I get it.
yeah.
But I'm not the king of Hayden, I'm just mayor, so, whatever the group wants to do there, we should do that.
I think this makes sense this way.
See, I'm very concerned with you being able to drive your behemoth retro pickup truck anywhere you want in Hayden.
Ed, Matt, any thoughts? Do you have a preference of one or the other? No. No preference? No preference?
I
D and Z?
Splitting hairs.
How are you guys?
Splitting hairs?
If that's the way it is. I think it's good.
Good as is or good
Good
as
as it's
proposed?
sitting right there. I think we can move on.
Is that a big deal? You're fine with it? All right, we're eventually gonna have hills we're gonna be willing to die on, so I'm here to say not that one.
I got other hills.
Fair enough. All right, so 3 is done. You just got rid of her, right?
Her. I kept hearing her, and I'm like, her, it's not in there.
All right. Policy 4 supports goals 3 and 8. Looks like there's some comment added, some ideas that Matt had done or had talked about. Development compatible with land use maps, allowing homes to develop areas without additional tax burdens on existing homeowners. Can we do that legally? What were you? I'm looking at the extra words that were proposed by our council member here.
I don't know that we have this, so.
We don't have that copy, so we're not sure what.
They're in the center of the table.
Can we hand one back to our?
Fonda's got them.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
one, flip once, twice, and it's on the top there. So revised goal 3.
Oh, got it.
So,
Now we're on 4.
Well, it's revised goal 3.
Got it. I was just looking at the wrong
Because
page.
I'm looking
Which is
at policy 4.
Yeah.
And then
And
underneath
then
that
this one
is,
says goal 4.
so underneath that are all the applicable policies
Talk to the right where it says goal reference.
per the table that.
Let me ask you, in the blue here where it says revised, did you rewrite goal 3?
No, I just copied that right.
Okay, by revised, you mean the new proposed one?
The new proposed one.
All right,
So we
so
don't have to flip pages.
Forgive me,
Nope.
this is just my work
Okay.
product,
That's fine.
and
No, we're
it's
okay
probably
working on it.
error prone, but,
no, it's good because we don't have to flip back and forth.
I think
It's
I
right
see
here.
what's going on now.
yeah, so,
Okay.
just so everybody knows, I took Donna's tables, which she sent to all email, and I just broke them out, goal by goal, and then I put all the applicable policies underneath, and then I started editing from there. So for example, if you go back and look at the table, we struck policy, or goal number 1, so there's 2, 3, 4, et cetera, and these are exactly what we worked on last time.
So the ones that are lined out are currently in the comp plan.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so lined out, current comp plan, in black, what is being proposed, red, councilman's edits, or suggestions for,
Yeah.
So your question to me was, can you put the red underline?
Yeah.
In there?
in policy 4, yes.
Yeah, my question back to you is at what point in time do you establish who's an existing homeowner?
If you live under a roof and you pay taxes.
But since when? If you got here today, if you get here tomorrow, if you got here last week, if you got here 2 years ago, if you've lived here your whole life?
My whole point is that existing homeowners do not pay for development out of increased fees and levies.
So maybe rewording it to maybe say that instead of putting on, or to say that in some ways that development will pay for itself. I mean, it does, I believe, in all the studies we've been doing. In fact, I think it more than pays for itself.
That was actually my recommendation I sent to you, Mayor, that goes to the heart of what you just said. Let me pull it up, and I define it as just a financial goal, and I'll read it. The growth of Hayden shall pay for itself. A financial burden due to increase in taxes or fees caused by growth should not be imposed on Hayden citizens. Now that's the question is, does growth pay for itself? And it doesn't. But it doesn't mean we shouldn't have a goal to try to get there.
But what happens when someone challenges that?
Well,
It says, okay, this development over here is 100, whatever it is, and the developer is going to pay for the infrastructure within the development. Where we run into problems is with what we're seeing with the increased city infrastructure, the need for widening the roads or need for increased, who knows, sewer and stuff like that. And so you get the new development coming in down here, 100 houses, pick a number, and yeah, they pay for it within themselves, but then somebody does a study or something like that and says, well, wait a minute, because of these additional people in here, additional homes, we need X amount of road, X amount of this. How are you going to pay for that road or infrastructure? And with our low levy rate, you know, we're going to say we can't, because we can't now. As we sit right now, for the most part, we can't, without help from outside agencies, we can't do our roads and intersections and things like that. So how do you enforce that or not
Create another
property
problem.
rights or whatever? Because in a way, it's, you know, and maybe just my quickly formulating, which could be wrong here, in a way, it's the fact of the right term for forcing a possible moratorium. Well, these new developments here, and it's requiring additional infrastructure roads, but it says here in your policy that you can't. You know, I would expect a challenge to that somewhere down the road.
My bigger concern is how do you compute it? Because so let's say I have a RS out there on the prairie and I change to R1 and put up 4 homes. How do you compute my impact on the sewer and the roads relative to, say, next to me, a guy's putting up 100 homes? And how do you do all that math to say that my impact, my value, in other words, the city's going to have to come up with a table that says, this is how much you owe the city because of your 4 homes you put on where there was just one RS home, 2 months ago.
We do that now through impact fees.
Yeah,
Okay.
those are limited.
And impact fees are sewer and roads, right?
and
They're not sewer.
Not sewer, sorry,
Parks.
parks and roads, I apologize, parks and roads, that's
And
right.
public safety.
so the idea is, and I'll give you an example. I sit on the Hayden Area Regional Sewer Board, and we have requirements, not just goals, but requirements that the EPA imposes on us, that the limits or the parts per trillion that are going to be imposed on us to dump into the Spokane River of certain pollutants, industry can't even meet. So the EPA is imposing on us to do something we can't do, but the goal is to try to get there. So, and that's how I thought of this. Unless we have a goal for the city to say, hey, we need to somehow look forward enough that growth should pay for itself, because otherwise, we as citizens are going to be paying for it, or we are going to pay for it, because it doesn't pay for itself. So does that mean we shouldn't try to go there?
So,
That's the purpose of, at least in my mind, how you get there. I don't know how you do it with policies or action plan, but I think it's a goal that most citizens would say, yeah, I would like to see that.
and I understand what you're trying to get at. And at the same time, let me restate Ed's a little bit differently. you put in 100-home subdivision over on Ramsey, okay? But your people travel out towards 95 in all different places, all different ways. But now we have the need for a roundabout at Ramsey and Prairie. Whatever, okay? How do we quantify that it's you that created that impact
And that's what I was
and
trying
not
to say.
somebody
Right,
else?
That's what I was trying to say.
Exactly.
Right.
But the need for a
and-
roundabout isn't just the 100 new houses, it's the existing ones too.
And it's all the areas around us as well that come into Hayden. So I don't know that there's any way to put a finger on that.
Okay, well, otherwise, growth doesn't pay for itself, and the citizens are going to pay for it, and I guess that's where it's headed, and that's where it's going to go. So unless we're willing to try to change that somehow, and I don't know how you do it, because you have valid questions, I'm just saying, unless you set a goal to try to get somewhere, you're never going to get there. So do you want to try or not? That's really why I...
Well, but I worry if we put that in our policies, that it just opens us up to litigation.
That's what I was-
Well, I don't know.
The minute we try to enforce it, we,
What if we said something like minimums? Is that too fluffy?
You know, my kind of rhetorical question is, you can't have two different tax codes or tax levy rates on two different, multiple different types of people. It's one way that the Idaho state sets our levy rate is about our need to pay for things that we have that constitute a public service across the evaluation formula that they've come up with for your particular contribution to that. You can't say, well, now this person's new, so they get a different levy rate. And so that's why impact fees were instated here, is to sort of help offset the coming on to the system. But when you have already an existing system, you are, as a taxpayer, contributing towards the replacement cost of that. So how do you tell somebody who's come on here that because somebody's been here 20 years or they're third generation, that they're different than the people, the need is still the same? And that's the part where I'm trying to rationalize. The only thing I can think of with regards to how you might have growth help pay for itself outside of what we're already doing is to look at a cost-benefit analysis done at the time of an application comes in to see if the cost-benefit of the taxes you're going to take in on those property tax owners over the lifespan of the utilities that they're using is adequate. But otherwise, I don't know how you would do outside of that because of the way the state's set up structurally.
So, I'm going to acknowledge, first of all, that some of my preconceptions have been invalidated, so I'm learning more, but I had a discussion with staff about this. And it was a hypothetical discussion that a whole new subdivision was built out, and it kind of dovetailed into some of the concerns that Councilman Roeder has brought up about available sewer capacity. And let's say there's a point where, boom, it's all run out, what do we do? And the staff member to whom I spoke about this said, well, one possible solution is that the city would take out a bond and then increase levy rates in order to pay for the principal and interest on that bond that goes to put the sewer, added sewer capacity in. Now, as a taxpayer, I would think, well, why should I fund that? That should be on the onus of the new development, because they're the ones that are adding or requiring additional capacity. It's a...
No, I just,
And I think the counter to that, just for sake of conversation tonight, is what is an essential public service? Meaning, as a community, you guys have established what those are and what we've done, streets, roads, sewer lines, water lines, police. And when we start to establish what those essential services are and we're paying for them either through their rates or their property taxes, it's hard to then parse those out and say that somehow something's different. The state hasn't given us that authority, and because we don't have that authority to treat newcomers differently, it makes it really hard, I think, on the staff to sort of make that an equitable law on our books.
What I was gonna say is, I moved here in October of '94, and I moved into a place, you know where the towers on Front are now, Marty Miller's Towers? Little house on Front Street there. And I went to an impact fee hearing they had at the library. And what you just said, almost word for word, was said 30 years ago. And I'm sure it was probably being said 20 years before that. We're here, you know, the people coming should have to pay more. Why are we having to pay for the people coming?
Yeah.
And my point, and, you know, I've been into this for 2 or 3 years now, and most everybody knows where I came from and what I've come from. And like you just acknowledged, when I first came into it and then became educated to the realities of it, a lot of the things that I thought, oh yeah, well they aren't, oh yeah, type of things. But this discussion has been probably being had since time, you know, and especially up here, as far as how, Matt's right. The goal of trying to find a way to make growth pay for itself is what I think everybody has been trying to do forever. Okay, but these last 2, 3, 5 years, it seems to have been exponentially, the field, as everybody's going, whoa, much more than it seemed 10, 20 years ago. And again, we're talking about the state structures. We have to do things a certain way. And we can't treat any, you know, somebody who's been here 2 years, charge them more than somebody who's been here 20. Even though everybody gets that principle or idea that's being talked about.
What are you guys' thoughts on just, this is the cost of living in a society? In other words, as more people live where you live, roads are going to have to be built, sewers going to have to be expanded, and we just accept as a society that that's how the world works. And I mean that in a very positive way. I mean, that's, could be looked at, I'm not advocating this position, I'm just floating it out there, as a good thing. We have a good town, and these things are required, and we all lump in and acknowledge and pay for them. Because we all want better streets, we all want better sewer, we all want these things.
I think that's reality we just stated. Whether we think it's a good thing or not, that's the reality. It's not unfortunate one way or another. That's the way it is.
Keith?
So it's definitely a multifaceted issue. And one thing that we should probably include in the thought process is there are a lot of people that have not just been here a long time, but are on fixed incomes. And their incomes don't go up just because they're,
We need a bigger road.
you know, and so, we don't want to drive them out because they can't any longer afford to stay in their own home.
Is it pointless to maybe instead of saying without additional tax burden, say minimizing additional tax burden, or giving something where it, or are those just gonna be kind of hollow words?
You're just, you can put the goals out there and policies however you want. You are constantly going to be hamstrung by Idaho code. And until this changes at the legislative level, you don't have authority to do what you're looking to do.
Okay, so what you're telling me is good discussion,
Great discussion.
but really rubber meets the road, we can't put it in there.
But maybe say parks to newly developed areas without additional tax burden, comma, if possible. I mean, leave it out there and then stop. As these are our thoughts, if that's what your consensus is, recognizing just kind of where your hands might be tied.
Tom, what do you think?
So, I'm sorry, I'm gonna be a little long-winded here before I give you your answer. I read a book. I've been reading a book called Smart Towns. Has anybody ever read this book? Okay. The author describes a conundrum of American urban and suburban areas, which is in order to pay for existing infrastructure, they need new growth and new tax base to funnel that money into fixing existing stuff. And what it's causing is in places that are much more urbanized, the core district is falling into disrepair and people are moving out, and it's becoming like ghost towns. And we know there are places around the United States where that is happening. Wouldn't it be nice to have policies and codes that try to break that cycle? And this is one of the ways in which to solve that problem. I understand I'm really trying to espouse a spirit here, and maybe state statute won't allow us to do anything, but if we just put words on paper and then just move on, have we accomplished anything?
Well, it doesn't sound like we can accomplish any real
And just,
meaningful thing except for expressing our spirit and our preference.
Okay.
Because if Idaho code says we can't, then until that changes, and that doesn't mean we can't work
Maybe
with
we
our
ought to start
legislators.
lobbying
Yeah.
Boise through the AIC.
and just for a point of clarity, it's called Strong Towns, not.
Strong
Yeah,
town, sorry,
strong towns.
yes.
There's smart cities.
Well, you and I, yeah, well, no, I didn't want to say
And
that.
and the conundrum that you're speaking of is, I think, widespread, and it's a great book. I would encourage you all to read it. And the author does do a 4-hour synopsis of the book that's also done really well. But basically, it's the idea that the vehicle has caused our cities to grow to these suburban neighborhoods, and our core towns are dying, and how to resolve that issue. And it is, there's definitely policies in there that I've adopted as a manager that I think are prudent that we can look at here, but to put into an aspiration or a goal or a policy that we were to do these types of things where we don't have the support from the state is where it runs afoul, I think, of actually meeting that objective. So I think what I'm saying, Tom, is it might be worth looking at some of the policies within that book and seeing if there's something from there that you can bring back.
Matt, you had a thought?
Yeah, Northern Lakes Fire District, they have a impact fee that is, they're raising a lot of money, and it's only being imposed on new construction. And we're collecting as a city for that. And so I guess my point is that I think we do have an avenue that we really need to push, and that is circulation impact fees, park impact fees, which are legal. And then if we do move forward to a public safety building or facility somehow, we can have a public safety impact fee. We actually had one, and we're returning some of that money now because we don't have a project. So I guess my point would be that somehow as a policy is to try to increase our impact fees as high as possible so we can pay for circulation in parks. and
Aren't we
public
at
safety.
max per the formula already? We just kind of did these not long ago, didn't we? And it seems to me that we're very close to our maximum allowable
Where's
collection.
the chalkboard?
You can
Raise
take the-
taxes.
Council did not take the maximum recommended on every category in that report.
So I think there's a goal or a policy that we should.
Well, yeah.
That's why that's
Yeah.
one of the things we can legally do. And I will tell you, this goes back about 5 years ago. We had a impact fee committee.
Is growth our goal? Are we trying to grow? Are we trying to raise the population? Why don't we,
Why do I
instead
want
of raise
any more-
taxes, why don't we inhibit growth, inhibit more population? Make it,
Well,
I'm just saying,
That's been worked
throwing
on.
out ideas.
That's been worked on the last 2 years, actually.
Fonda, is this a item that could potentially go under the actions in Exhibit A?
Is our
If
goal
the-
growth?
Yes, with their-
No.
their-
No, it's not.
If they wanted
I'm trying
to,
to attract people.
okay, to address potential funding options or what have you. So as an example,
Their action item list.
right, so in the action item list, I mean, just as an example, we have development and implement a funding mechanism for the preservation of open space for the purpose of aquifer protection.
Where is that, are you reading from?
In your
That's the
The
next
action
layer of the
plan.
onion after.
The next layer of the onion. Anyway, they have several. That was one that I knew that would hit a couple of choices that you guys have thrown out. That's in the action
We're not
plan.
going into that layer
Not tonight,
again
no.
today.
Correct.
Yeah.
But I was
So-
just saying that maybe this was an avenue to push this funding mechanism to that location.
So just to get policy for reconciled,
I like your idea, Mayor, where you said minimize impact to the taxpayer.
yeah, instead of saying without additional tax burden, something like words to the effect of minimizing additional tax burden, period.
So here's my concern.
Yeah.
When it's in front of P&Z and we're looking at policies and goals to approve or not a
Right.
project, how are we equipped to look at that level?
That's why you're here, to ask these hard
Well,
questions.
no, but that's what I'm saying.
To look at
Is-
what?
Well,
Well, how
to
would they
look
make a land
at,
use decision if this was their policy?
if I,
This specific one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were gonna look and say,
Yeah.
hey, are we minimizing additional tax burden? They could easily default to, we're not, we're maximizing tax burden and deny every application that comes through. That's your point, right?
right, and so that concerns me. Stop. As to how would we actually use this in a productive way?
I would add after minimizing additional tax burden, it needs to be comma
No
if
permit,
possible.
Good
You
point.
only have the tools.
Or where
available to you,
possible.
Or where possible.
Yeah, where possible.
Yeah, you can only evaluate the tools that are available to you in that moment for that.
Right.
And I'll just bring up the same thing I brought up last time we met, which is Spirit Lake is in a moratorium now because of lack of resources.
I was just gonna say, why
But they
don't we
get
do a
only 1
moratorium?
year, I think.
That's every
So
other
they
year.
have longer because there's DEQ imposed.
Okay, but ours would probably, in other words, it's never a good thing for us to be in that position.
So if we were not able to, if project went from us to you, and this was one of the policies that was used in the argument, then it would be up to you guys to see, to find a different layer of it or something. If that was your contention right there, that it was going to increase the burden, it would behoove you guys to then be able to find something that we didn't. Right? What are you saying, Ed?
No, I was going to comment that Keith's, because Keith kind of spurred, kind of where I have shifted, since we had a very similar, if you go back to the first meeting that I was seated, we talked, we wanted to change the comp plan. And we had a presentation that said, here's the process, here's the cost, here's this. And it caused me to think outside the box, use that corny one. But instead of inhibiting growth, I'd say we need to manage it, and we can manage it and have through goals, policies, codes, and standards. It has given us the tools to fairly look at and evaluate, and then have the ability to say yay or nay based on, and again, I think the context and neighborhood is one I'll use as example, which if something just doesn't fit, then it gives us the ability to say, no, it doesn't fit that thing right now. Or I think, and I have a little thing I was hoping to talk about at the end, which I will, but I would say we can't really inhibit. We can't make obvious gestures or whatever,
Right.
saying, we're going to stop this, or what's going to happen, Fonda?
Oh, you're gonna get sued.
Yeah, if you're obviously
Yeah, big time.
saying, if you're obviously saying,
Big time.
we're doing this to stop you,
Well,
then-
first
then-
what'll happen is you'll lose what you've been appointed to do and or what you've been elected to do. And I've walked you through this in training before. If and when developers believe that you've created enough public dialogue of being anti-growth, they'll come in and ask for an independent hearing examiner. They'll provide what they believe is sufficient evidence to show that you don't have the ability to be fair and unbiased, and that you have a bent towards a specific decision, and they'll ask for an independent hearing examiner. And that's the first step of what we don't want. You council members were elected to vote. You were elected to do a job. You need to be able to stay in that seat to do a job.
So I'd like to move on to policy 5, if everybody's all right with that. The only thing I would say is the bigger issue than being sued, frankly, is today it's what Tom wants to do with his land. Nope, you can't do that. Tomorrow, now what if it's what I want to do with my land? That's the thing, right? That's the first step towards,
In
now the
my-
government is telling you what you can and what you can't do.
In my defense,
You gotta speak up.
I want to get away from subjective arguments and use objective criterion for pass-fail decisions.
So in light of that last sentence, I think with everything that was being discussed, when it says where possible, that could be deemed as a negative anti-growth sentiment. What if it said within reason? That way, it's looked at objectively taking in all the.
Is that too ambiguous,
counterpoints.
Fonda?
I don't like any of the part in
Yeah,
red
me
number
either.
4. I was trying to help you stay on the
Yeah.
track because it's your, it's your planning process, but,
Yeah, but we don't want to make something that's going to stink to implement, right? I mean, you build a car with square wheels, you go, I built that, but it sure stinks. We don't want to be in that position. I know you don't want to lead us around by the nose, but we don't want to, again, we don't want to put square wheels here.
So fun, I just have a really dumb question. We're gonna try to apply this policy. I have a project that is compatible with the land use chapter of the comprehensive plan. And it is compatible, it follows the transportation plan, the sewer master plan, and the parks plan. It's on an area that is potentially not fully developed in its area. And the parks plan has a service area identified in the parks plan.
Yeah, 4 of them.
So you're saying that the people that are developing it will pay full taxes and the people that are currently there won't? Is that
I'm
what
not
that says? Is that what that says? That's my
No,
curiosity
that is
question.
not what I see it saying the way it is right now. Could it be applied that way? Sure. What these guys are looking for is a way to utilize something that's not identified at this point to minimize additional tax burden. It's like this
It's pretty ambiguous.
pie in the sky, ambiguous idea.
So do you see anything wrong with the 2 ands that are highlighted? Because ands mean it has to meet all of that,
Yeah?
not, it's an all or nothing kind
If you
of
put a comma after
policy.
plan and just say B instead of and the first time.
I would put a semicolon after areas to really separate all of that.
Do what?
After and parks to newly developed areas, semicolon. If you want to keep the language, but really separate that idea of minimizing additional tax burden where possible from the rest of that
I
policy.
just want to make sure we're all talking about the same
I
thing.
think this has kind of been expressed, if I heard correctly here, and it's what I kind of started off, saying it is ambiguous and, how are you going to do it? That's me, if I'm,
concerned how we're using
okay, you've got it on there, how are you going to actually do it?
Well, that's where you go to your action plan next and you try to identify those areas. So Matt expressed one.
How can you minimize additional, well, if you take full,
Yeah, so impact.
that's something that would almost be separate from that. If the next time, or whenever we can address impact fees, we say, no, we want the max on everything. Okay, and that kind of takes care of that.
So when you got to the next step, your action planning, you would be looking for actual steps, actual hardcore steps you could take to accomplish this policy of minimizing additional tax burden. I don't know what that would be.
Right.
So to kind of look at, not to belabor this, but this is a huge issue and has been for a long time. I sat down, a couple years ago with a few developers, and they wanted me to change my attitude towards growth. And I said, okay, well, can you help me? Because, you make a lot of money and you're real smart and I need input. How do we pay for what we already have? We're already behind the 8 ball. How do we can't fix the roads. We have some major sewer issues that you're probably not aware of. And so we keep going backwards with each development that gets built. So do we just put our head in the sand and say, oh, well, and we keep going backwards? And so the only solution that they said is, well, you guys got to raise your taxes. That's what the developer said. So what do we do? I mean, this is, help me understand as a council member, how we're going to pay for what the problems we already have or issues we already have. Multi-million-dollar issues, because our taxes don't cut it. You're shaking your head.
Yeah, well, so I mentioned earlier about looking at cost-benefit analysis of certain developments and whether or not the development itself will pay back in taxes over the. So we know that a street has a lifespan of about 7 to 10 years. Before that street needs to have some maintenance done on it. And then possibly over a longer period of time it has to be replaced. So when we look at the cost benefit of development, what we're looking for is the amount of density, is the amount of infrastructure to density representative of a cost replacement. And those, there are companies and firms out there that do that, and that hints at the book that Tom had mentioned earlier, they talk a lot about that. So, I know that many of the practices in the past and some of the expressed interest in density going forward maybe don't align with that. So I don't know. I do know that our particular levy rate would, and we can't keep using growth to pay for our previous bad investments, meaning we're not taking in enough tax dollars to replace those public infrastructure. So, it's a good question, but there are tools out there that help eliminate that for council members.
I mean, didn't you do something in Bonners where you added a 1% sales tax, everything under $100 or something like that? Was that only for?
Under $1,000. Yeah.
Under $1,000.
Yeah, that's not available to us here.
Why?
Local.
Not that I don't want that.
Yeah.
but-
Less than 10,000.
Population, huh?
Yeah,
Oh,
there is
okay.
a metric that says population is 3%.
Let the developer do the damn thing. So again, I just emphasize, how do we keep going forward when we're going backwards?
I think it's a great question.
And so unless we have a goal to try to correct that, it's not gonna get any better. It's gonna get worse. That's why I brought it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't disagree, but I don't know that this is the format for us to, are you,
So policy 5, what are your thoughts? Tom has one comment. Does there, anybody else have any other comments? The idea behind it was simply that as we develop, that we're going to have transition zones. In other words, we're not going to stick single-family homes right next to commercial areas. That's the goal, or that's the, I shouldn't say goal. That's the thought laid down.
Say that again for my benefit, please.
The thought laid down here is that we're not butting single-family homes up against a commercial area. We're going to have a, transitional zone. This is where, for example, mixed use would go, but obviously I wasn't going to put that word in a policy.
So the meat will be put into the next layer of the onion, as you say, will,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
good.
So any questions on 5?
Well, I honestly thought about striking that and then just putting a little bit of it into 4 as well. So it could say something along the lines of protect natural resources, including water and park systems. I'm sorry.
where are you at?
You're looking at the
No, I can't count. Responsible in supplying adequate transportation and maintenance of, or maintaining a transition between business and residential zones or something like that. Utilities, parks, and newly developed areas. So just putting 5 to striking it and putting 5 in with,
4.
putting 5 and 4, sorry. And, yeah, just not having that number 5.
Not a bad idea. I called out 5 specifically on its own when I drafted these because of the varying opinions on where and how much transitional areas to put in Hayden. So that's why it's kind of called out.
So, but I look at what was original, what Tom has struck out, and I see it as two different things.
Yeah, they're not.
They're
my
not
5 and
really
their
the
5
same
are-
thing.
They're not related.
I gave up on trying to do that
Yeah.
later on.
They're
'cause it
not
was-
related.
I was confusing myself, so don't worry.
Okay, well, because I think that what we have, areas proposed for annexation are to be considered only if they are contiguous to the city limits and
Yeah,
adequate.
that's on a
I think
different
that's
one
an
now.
important one.
But that's different. It's in here. It's just in a different spot.
Yeah.
It got moved around.
Okay.
All right, so
I apologize for the confusion.
with the clarification of why 5 standing on its own, is it okay as is then? Anybody else got any issues with 5?
I understand
The
that the
current
intent.
5,
Okay, what's that?
I'll be,
the current 5, or what Tom's?
5 as proposed. Can we move on to 6?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Okay,
I don't know why you put, what does this mean though?
just need clarification.
Okay.
Can we swap prioritize for encourage or encouraging? We'll be encouraging when,
We're not, where's prioritize?
On 6.
sorry, on 6?
Housing
Oh,
options
you moved
include.
on. I'm like, I'm still trying to.
So what 6 is trying to say, and maybe this is the way we lead these, that if you guys have a better way to word it, that's great, is the idea when we have an infield fill project that we consider the different types of homes that are allowed in that zone.
So a while back, I thought we were talking about, we aren't supposed to prioritize and really be like, no, you can't build that here because we are going to build this here.
Okay.
So maybe we could swap that with encourage or something less set in stone.
Yeah, that's fine, encouraged instead of prioritized. But you guys understand the thing is, in other words, we got a, whatever, there's an acre or a half an acre up here on whatever, Maple and fill in the blank, and there's a trailer home and it's, you know, dilapidated, it gets raised. Somebody wants to come build something, we're trying to say, hey, please consider all the options that fit in this neighborhood. Don't just stuff it with something high density, or don't just stick one house on it, but please consider.
Yeah.
Well, I think that goes with our neighborhood context.
Yeah.
That sounds more encouraging than, being authoritarian and saying, no, we will only have this here.
We want to prioritize, but
I mean, if you guys want to strike the prepositional phrase of including smaller single-family
Oh,
homes and
Mrs. Coughlin,
townhomes.
what the heck, man?
What's that?
My ninth grade English teacher, prepositional phrase.
That's what it is.
Draw a line and label it.
If it's too descriptive or too much of a hot button issue to say the word townhome, we could just say housing options will be prioritized or will be, what was the word you used?
Encouraged.
Encouraged?
Yeah, something a little bit more
Should
vague
fit the
than that.
neighborhood context.
Yeah, something, yeah.
Do that.
That's good.
I
Okay.
like that, yes.
All right.
Housing option.
By the way, it's
should
better than a
meet
dangling participle.
The neighborhood context.
Neighborhood context
Yeah.
when considering infill projects.
Yeah.
Today's or tomorrow's?
Period.
That makes today's,
So what is it? Housing options will.
today's. Oh, hold it, time out.
There you go.
Okay, there you go. There's an issue that I think needs to be addressed because that S on the end of contexts, and we just heard it.
Yep.
Today's context or tomorrow's contexts, which is, I believe, are so that it can relate to this side, and which people will then say, well, yeah, right now on the current side and the neighborhood as it sits right now, it's this, but on this side, the context says we want it to be this. And that's something that I think I would like to, at a later date, clean up, because I think that leaves a lot of ambiguity there, and in a way is a tool that can possibly defeat
What we're trying to
the
do.
intent of current neighborhood context.
Okay.
So down the road, but
Well, that and if my project is approved today, then the rules you give me today are what I get to live by.
So are we going to stick the context stuff in the beginning? Or?
Do you want that, including that con too?
Yeah, right, that's gone. Oh, I don't like shall. Let's do will. Can we do will? Shall almost sounds optional to me. No, those are
Yeah, I'm
optional.
gonna be picking on that.
I like a will.
Hey,
Do it or don't do
you,
it.
having been in the military, ought to recognize there's a
Shall
very
means
big difference between
it, doesn't
will and shall.
I know, and I always hated shall.
Yeah, well, shall means it will be done, will means, we can think about it, so.
See, I think see, I've heard too many sea lawyers do the opposite. Well, it says shall, does that mean I really have to? Where to me, will is unambiguous.
do.
You have to.
And
So
then
I'm
there's
gonna play
also
devil's-
may. I've
Oh, and I
seen
hate
may.
may
Play
too.
devil's advocate.
I'm going to play devil's advocate, just really briefly.
Yeah, please.
You've got that infill lot, and you have it over on Maple and Samad Street over there.
Yeah.
Where the whole side of that side of town is single-family residential.
Yeah.
You can't do anything that you just said you wanted to do by this on that lot. Because they're going to build one house that's a
Okay.
detached house on that lot.
Understand.
Because that's what's there today, and that's what's there tomorrow.
and I'm gonna.
So I'm just throwing that out. I mean, you can't do what your example
Should we stick an
suggested to
adjective in
do.
front of housing? In other words, the first word of 6 could be, like a variety of housing options, comma,
Will consider.
and something like consistent with neighborhood context will be encouraged.
We're talking about infill. Neighborhood housing options consistent with neighborhood context.
I don't know, is that, or did I just do something that made it all single family now?
A variety of housing
Pretty much.
options consistent with neighborhood context
Will
will be
be.
encouraged.
Or in other words, those things are working against each other now?
I think a variety of housing options is.
So
good enough.
what
You're
is
saying the
that?
Same thing twice, a variety and housing options, it's.
It's the same.
So what are
It's like saying
those?
tuna fish.
What are those? I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm the guy that gets upstairs, that gets asked this all the time.
Yeah,
So I want you to tell me
what you're telling.
what that is that you're encouraging.
Well, strike it
And
then.
where it is that you're encouraging it.
Yeah, then strike it.
Well, we could get
So,
rid of a variety of.
I'll answer your question with an example. My old neighborhood was single-family homes. There's now, on one lot that was one house, there are 2 and 3 tall, skinny homes. Here, then a single-family home here, then 3 tall, skinny homes here, then, Does Hayden want that to happen?
What's a tall skinny home?
Oh, you haven't seen them? They're like 17 feet across. You take a lot, you used to have one home on it, now you put 3. They're real narrow, they're tall.
Government way across
They're
the
single
cemetery.
family, but they're.
They are single-family homes. They do require a small lot size. You have to subdivide the lot, but they're pretty hideous.
I just.
You have to get his own amendment
And I'm
first.
just saying, do we want that to happen? And Hayden, if everybody here says, yeah, then okay,
So is there something that's better than consistent with neighborhood is there something that's better than consistent with neighborhood context that would cause or trigger somebody who had a project to consider other options? So that's really what I'm trying to communicate is, it's like, let's look at all the options that are allowed for this zone and consider them. That's what
Does
this,
everybody understand what infill projects are?
yes.
did I misuse a technical term?
No, I just want to make sure everybody at the table is talking about the same thing.
Okay.
What's already
It's
within the
that.
city limits? Is that what we're saying? Empty lots within the city limits?
Yeah, but they're surrounded by development already. So
Right.
they have a
Right.
5-acre parcel that's surrounded by development,
Right.
that's an infill project that needs
Right.
to fill in.
Or you have an acre lot.
Right.
It's got a little bitty pole on it and a big acre in the
So
back.
Donna, let's get rid of consistent with neighborhood context and come up with something synonymous, or just leave it as is? Because obviously if one's fighting the other, I get it.
But my question was going to be, if you would all understand what an infill project is, what do you want to see there?
Exactly.
So,
That's what this is getting at, because
Yeah.
you're speaking to infill.
Yep.
What's your preference in those infill
The preference is
parcels?
not to tie a person's hands and tell them that you can only build X because that's what's next to it.
Okay, so
Although
what's your
obviously,
preference?
at the same time, you don't want, say, the A word going up next to a bunch of houses.
Would cohesive be a better term instead of, because cohesive would fit a neighborhood even though it might not be the same single family.
I like that. Thoughts?
I'm good with that. It really turns out what it's going to drive in terms of,
So can we say a variety of cohesive housing options? I like that. Well done.
Cohesive?
Cohesive.
What's a cohesive?
ties in.
Kind of like
with-
adhesive.
Now you gotta figure out what
I-
cohesive is.
I think of a community like Leavenworth in Washington, where there's certain rules and regulations, even though it's a Starbucks or a McDonald's,
They have
it
to
has
look
to be
at the title.
cohesive with the look and feel of the.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. Now you gotta define.
All right.
Same as context.
Shall we press on to 7? Is everybody good with 6? Did we thrash that one thoroughly with our tuna fish?
don't love it.
All right, 7, so this was, I drafted 7, honestly, a lot out of my personal vision for Hayden and also from the citizen survey, because we've got areas in the town where houses went up and they didn't give a rat's who about parks. And I think it's important to have open space, and our citizens seem to have echoed that over and over, so that was the idea behind it.
So let me ask, do we not already have, or, well, let me ask it differently. What is our mechanism for gaining land? Even if it's not in my subdivision, do I not still have to pay land? to buy land?
There's a parks plan, if I'm understanding your question correctly, there's a parks plan, and there are parks that are,
So are parks part of the impact fees?
Yes.
Okay, so in that way, I'm paying into a pot
Yep.
for the city to acquire land to build a park.
not necessarily to acquire land.
I thought it was
Maintain a park.
their seeding land, like they own 10 acres and they say, we'll give to the city 2 acres for parks and
But
then
it-
build on the rest.
Right, but that's.
But that depends on
but
the
that's-
developer.
As I understand, I could be completely wrong, that's consistent with the parks plan. And what I'm saying is, we're going above and beyond that now, saying if we're gonna put in a massive development, there needs to have some parks in it.
So then the next layer would have the specifics on who has to put it in?
No, that goes into code.
That goes into code. So it's 2 layers down.
So, yeah. So
Okay.
If I could just summarize quickly,
Yeah.
parks impact fees. When you come and you build in Hayden, a new house, then you pay a proportionate impact fee based on the square footage of the home. I'm looking at Dawn to make sure I have it right. I have this in here, but not an application yet. So, we actually have a study that was done by a consulting firm called SCS that's looked at the amount of impact fees that we've taken and proportionally been able to use them across the city of where we're taking those fees in, so that you're not paying if you're building a house on west part of Hayden to the east part. We can use those funds to not only acquire land, but also develop them. We really only get into situations where subdivisions right now are donating land as part of either annexation agreements or some master development agreement
Planned unit
associated with
developments.
their land use
PUDs.
application.
And planned unit developments.
So the city took a pivotal move, I don't know how long ago, looking at Donna to correct me if I'm wrong, a number of years ago, to move away from an exaction process in a subdivision to a impact fee driven solution. So the only time that we ever get them as part of exactions or conditions is through those specialized tools like annexation agreements and master developments and stuff.
And just, I know we're all talking parks, it does say or leisure space, so my goal with this was to drive a developer, if we maybe don't have a park that costs us too much to maintain, maybe a walking path, maybe, we leave some trees up, but the point is, we have a presence of not house.
Right.
But it goes back to the same explanation and discussion you had earlier of transportation that Matt articulated very well with you can obtain the city-owned open space. Do you have the financial infrastructure to maintain it?
Yes.
Teeter-totter.
Yep.
Yeah, parks are great until you have to pay for them.
So
Well, but
Fonda,
our taxpayers have overwhelming level, in the ones that did the survey overwhelmingly said we want open space, so one assumes they're willing to foot the bill, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Well, they understand.
Yeah, that's a big assumption.
That is.
The question at the end said, are you willing to pay? Not so many people said that, not for parks, but I don't know how that works.
The
We
transportation.
want it, but pay for it?
The transportation plan has multimodal pathways. They coincide with parks, greenway spaces on either side of those pathways. And there is connectivity between the parks, future parks, and school systems as well that are required as part of the development of subdivisions, as well as other development.
question for Fonda, regarding parks, we had a recent issue, and I don't have all the details in my brain again, but it had to do with requiring a park to be built, and then all of a sudden, it's not. And how does that affect our thinking with parks right now with what we're doing?
So I think your staff does a really good job on this development side of managing that teeter-totter of recognizing what the Parks Master Plan says as far as what is expected in this planning process and what the vision of the city was for parks, balancing that with what's realistic for being able to maintain both now and into the future.
Okay, so my question is, are developers obligated to put in park space based on their ordinances?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the short answer to that is only through the annexation agreement process of a master development agreement process. Otherwise, if they are doing a park given, remember I mentioned we pivoted from requiring it as a subdivision action and made it as an impact fee, they are making the land available for us to purchase through impact fees. Is that fair way of saying that?
Yeah, but planned unit developments also require dedication
This question was
of
relative to
park.
subdivision.
Yes, but that's a piece of subdivisions. Subdivision code itself doesn't require a park dedication at this point in time.
But it could once if this policy became,
So the reason that we took out, there's lots of reasons why that code left, but part of the reason is that if you say across the board you want 10% of every subdivision to be open space, then who pays for it? They're coming back to you, looking for us to pay impact fees.
and you can't say it's just the
For a
cost of doing
reimbursement.
development in Hayden?
Well, you're gonna end up with a bunch of private parks. They're still going to, let's say even if they dedicate the land, they build the park, and then they give it to the city. You have years of ongoing maintenance for that park that right now, you're struggling to maintain what you have. So you have to have a plan, it's that teeter-totter and balancing
Understood.
of, you can require it, but can you maintain it going forward?
Well, that's,
And they tried a little bit of that in the past, so we entered into the city granted impact fees to developers who kept the park private, maintain it, but we have public access to it. So those are two little bitty pocket parks. One in Avery Estates up on Government Way. It's got a very cute playground in it, but it's totally surrounded by Avery Estates and nobody really realizes it's
Yep.
public access.
Right.
And Stone Creek Park in all of their parks. So they have a main park with the gazebo and then they have a couple of benches in Stone Creek. Those are all
Well,
public access.
the ends that was thought of, again, is to create open space. Yes, does it come with requiring people to cut the grass and put in sprinklers? Yep, sure does. Getting back to, it's on the menu and you order it, you gotta pay for it. I'm not trying to
So then-
raise taxes or anything artificially, I'm just trying to say that if it's our vision to have open spaces, then that's something we have to manage.
And so then the other hiccup is if you make it entirely private, as Fonda identified, then an HOA owns it until the HOA potentially goes bankrupt, and then it goes up for tax sale and somebody else purchases it. We've seen that happen before as well.
Leaving it a natural space.
Bingo.
Well, that's the point, that's why there's the word leisure space in there, they don't have to put a park in there.
Right, if there's trees, just leave a couple acres that are just the trees.
I mean, again, this is at the policy level. We
Right.
can drill down more into what exactly what it
Sure.
look like, but
Yeah,
And this is probably going towards what you were just saying, one of the lower onions, but I keep seeing that, like, yes, they have parks planned or open space planned, but that's gonna come at the very last phase of their project, rather than the first or the second phase before they go bankrupt. So,
Well, but she wasn't talking about the developer going bankrupt, we're talking about the private parks or the
Oh, I know.
HOAs owning them.
that I know, but I'm concerned that current projects,
Yep.
focusing on certain phases, not even coming close to the open space area, which is what they sold the whole community on. And for all we know, that development is gonna shut down before they even get to that.
So, and then the other, I guess, the point that was made about open space, somebody has to own that and maintain it, otherwise, it's evident that was mentioned earlier, if it goes into tax sale, sheriff deed, then it becomes somebody else's private property. So, meaning the city is likely the purveyor of that or owner of that land, and we've got to have resources more likely allocated towards managing.
Tom, you had suggested striking the word maintainable. Was that because of for this reason?
Yes.
So what do you do? Should we strike maintainable and just roll on from here?
We could have it say maintainable leisure or natural park.
Yeah.
Something that makes it like.
Or natural space.
or natural.
Because then you don't gotta maintain it.
Yeah.
All right, so strike maintainable and have it say natural parks or leisure space.
Why
Or
not
just
just leave
parks?
it could be maintainable leisure or natural, so it could be like whatever works best.
Okay,
I,
yeah, I like that.
if you put maintainable, it says to me, groomed.
Yeah.
Room?
If it has to be
stoddard or
maintained, then it somehow has to be groomed. So if it just said parks, leisure space, or leisure or natural spaces will be incorporated into all
I'm
future
fine with
housing.
that. I mean, at the
I
end of
like
the day, I'm trying to get open space.
Yeah.
This is an
Yeah.
I know
initiative.
what you want.
Parks,
I'm just looking
leisure,
at the
or
pitfalls.
natural space.
No, it's good,
Will be
Mary.
incorporated.
Would you say like English Point
Parks,
area
leisure
is
space.
Not main, like.
Could you get rid of
Manicured.
Get rid
Yeah,
of
it's not
word space.
manicured.
You're doing that.
Parks, leisure,
Right.
or
That's like
natural
open
space.
space that has
Yeah.
trails that aren't,
Right.
it doesn't seem like we're putting tons of.
How's that? Is that
Right.
okay, Don?
Right, exactly.
All right, we happy with this one?
Yep.
Yes.
Let's roll. Number 8. Good Lord, my poor little laptop went to sleep here.
Yeah, I finally closed mine.
All right, what do we got for 8?
Talk about this one, we'll be halfway done.
So, okay, so this one's supporting,
This is kind of referring back to
this,
earlier.
yeah, this one
discussions.
supports 2 goals, the goal of how we're gonna build and then keeping infrastructure here. I think a lot of this came from existing policy statements. Yeah, and this is just a policy to say when we look at development, we're looking at utility services and affect city resources.
That's exactly what your master plans do, right?
Yep. So I don't see this one as being,
Right,
it's just pretty straightforward.
just the way it is, yeah.
Everybody good with that? All right, let's go to 9. This one supports annexation. And I think the idea there is we needed to have adequate infrastructure resources to support the decision. 9.
Adequate infrastructure resources must support annexation decisions unless
So-
applicant agrees to fund improvements.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, when I did this work on my own here, I didn't look just at rewording or editing the revised policies, but also adding policies to goals where I thought maybe they need to be. So for example, in the stuff I did and shared under revised goal number 4, I suggested adding number 7 along with 8 and 9.
Oh, I apologize, I looked right over it there.
Yeah, and I had suggested edits to 8.
The 7, the red 7 looks a lot like,
This is Microsoft Word when you press the review button or something like that. It will, if you delete something, it puts a line through it, and if you add something, it
red lines it.
redlines it.
So if I'm reading right, your policy 7 reads to me a lot like goal 7 that we already have.
Well, I took it right from the table, I thought.
Am I misunderstanding?
Oh.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. Really? I can't remember now.
It is 7.
Yeah, so what you have under revised goal 4 in red, and number 7 is literally revised goal 7.
Oh,
It's all right.
goodness. Okay, that was a mistake on my part.
No worry. Appreciate your efforts.
All right, so we're back at,
9?
thanks, 9. I guess, yeah, any objection or wordsmith on that one? I mean, the idea is we have an annexation request come up. Part of that decision process is that there has to be infrastructure, or we tell the applicant you fund it. I mean, I think it's along the lines of what we talked about earlier with new stuff paying for itself.
And then the next layer would give more direction to that, I'm assuming?
What you thinking about, Connor? Your face tells the
Thinking
story.
about annexation requests where you have property owners that are already on your city services, if they are.
Meaning they're in the ACI but not in the city limits?
Well, then, wouldn't you already argue that adequate infrastructure exists?
I'm just pointing out different scenarios.
Okay.
No, we appreciate that.
Oh, you might. Just kidding.
And what does Donna tell the applicant that comes in and wants to ask for an annexation about funding improvements? What does that mean?
So we need to be more specific than fund improvements?
Well,
Fund
I'd like to hear what your-
infrastructure impact, or that's, I mean, it's kind of no different than what we do now. I mean, homes are being built up at the north end of town. H6 was built in response to that. I mean, that's what we're trying to
All in the
support.
city limits,
Right, I'm just applying it to somebody getting annexed.
but
is what I'm
this
saying.
is in
Oh.
connection to annexation, so.
Right.
Could you say that again, please?
Well,
The idea is if somebody's wants to have their property annexed into the city, we're saying, just as we told the people up north, you have to build us a sewer station, maybe an annex request, maybe they want to annex whatever, 100 acres of land, that's going to impact our sewer system, you got to build us a lift station. That's what that's trying to say,
Yeah,
as an example.
and that would fall under the spirit of growth
Paying for itself.
yeah.
That was the idea. Sorry if the words are bad.
So,
If that's the intent, do you see a different word that?
I just wanted to make sure that the words were matching the process that's already in place.
so the way I read
Something
this,
different.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. The way I read this then is if I were to just walk in without any prior knowledge of all of our discussions, it sounds like, oh, the city must plan for and probably provide infrastructure before land can be annexed into the city.
That would be another way to read it, yep.
Yeah, which is not what we want, correct?
Yeah. So do we want to reword it, say, annexation decisions must require adequate infrastructure resources, comma, unless the applicant wants to, blah, 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 blah?
I think the issue though is you don't have impact on your infrastructure until the annexed property
Develops.
develops. So it's not the annexation that's the triggering event
I
for
understand.
impact on your infrastructure. It's at the time of development.
Was there
So
nothing
unless
like
they're
that in
coming
the old ones?
With an annexation request and a preliminary plat at the same time, this
Right.
is going to apply.
But I think what you're trying to do, this sets the tone that if somebody wants their land annexed into the city, okay, yes, but if we're gonna say yes, then development on that land must carry the burden, financial burden of the infrastructure.
That was the idea.
The policy 5 before says areas proposed for annexation are to be considered only if they're contiguous to the city limits and adequate infrastructure can be provided to service the development.
But again, that's a,
So is
That puts
this
it on
one
the city.
even,
yeah,
Right.
so is this one necessary?
Well, what I'm hearing is it's not triggered, but is there a way to word it that communicates our intent? To say that if you're coming to Hayden and you want to annex your land, you better be prepared to support it if we don't have infrastructure in there that can?
Does that mean like bring sewer for a mile or whatever it may
It
be?
assumes every annexation is in contemplation of development. That's the problem. So you're leaving an entire section of potential applicant out, which is the current landowner who wants to annex into the city because he wants to hook his old farmhouse to city sewer, whatever that might be.
Uh-huh.
But he's not coming in with the intention of development.
Right.
You know, you're looking 5 years from now, he could sell, and then you are looking at a developer. But this isn't gonna apply to that person because they already bought. So all I'm trying to do
Gotcha.
is open your eyes to, you're missing an entire category of potential
Yep,
annexation
no,
requests.
that's a good point. Yeah, if the farmer hooks the sewer up and then sells his land, this
Well,
won't
what
apply
if he
because
just
it's
hooks
already
it up
annexed.
just to be in the city limits, just because he wants city services? Yeah. Well, I wasn't contemplating the sale, but yes,
So,
this doesn't apply.
so am I hearing that we get rid of unless the applicant agrees on and just have it just be adequate infrastructure resources must support annexation decisions and that's it?
that still is open to interpretation that the city provides it.
Right, but the second half is, like she said, annexation doesn't trigger them to pay the cost, so I've poorly constructed the second half of that sentence.
Yeah, it's the development that triggers that, not.
Yeah, it's the development, not the annexation. In other words, we'd have to rely on a different policy to trigger what we're trying to do.
So don't we already have that
Well,
you even
in
need
your,
this
in your,
policy?
Fonda can correct me if I'm wrong, but in annexation agreements, you're telling them that they're gonna agree to dedicate the right-of-way in accordance with the typical section at the time of development, that they're gonna construct the roads in accordance to the transportation plan, they're gonna build the sewer to the master plans of the sewer system, that they're gonna
Yes.
dedicate parkland. So that's all in our annexation agreement standard protocol. So I guess what I'm trying to figure out if you're looking at something over and above that with this.
No,
Is that a fair question?
That's fair.
Okay.
Yeah.
no, that's what we want to, that's what we want to
And
go
I
into an
think that-
annexation agreement.
I think that what Donna's describing as the annexation sort of protocol, annexation agreement protocol, is in response to this sentiment of making sure that infrastructure resources can support annexation. So saying, well, if you're gonna annex for the purpose of development, at the time of development, here's what you're gonna do.
So if we put a period after the word decisions, that would be all right? Okay. And then get rid of the rest of it.
What's
Unless-
different, though?
What's that?
What's different, though?
So you're saying just,
I think you and I agree to the same thing, right?
yeah, so the first half of the sentence that we're keeping captures what's already in current policy, which is
Right.
what I wanted to do. I was just trying to improve it.
So
Apparently
again, do we need this one at all? Or is it already?
I believe so.
I think you need it.
You need it because without it, we won't be able to give them an annexation agreement that says all the things we
No,
want to
isn't
say.
it already in, didn't she say it was in 5?
I think she said it was in one of your.
No, in the old five.
Oh, in the old five.
You want to
Okay.
find it in the old one.
Okay, yeah.
No, I think we're saying, Donna's get rid of the rest of it. Not make it a second sentence.
I just wanted to make sure that we have cohesiveness to that.
No, because Fonda explained that the annexation agreement doesn't kick the. Okay, 10?
So somewhere else.
Yes. 10. The idea here was to concentrate businesses where businesses should go, which is establish industrial park neighborhoods, CBD, transportation corridors.
And my question was, what is mixing? Define it. What does other than single-family housing options mean, and what is the intent?
Maybe the word mixing is bad. Integrating, building.
What? Mixing, integrating, building what? Consider integrating, mixing, building what?
Other than single-family housing options along primary transportation corridors.
So this is what you were talking about, Ed, where if we were gonna have any kind of density other than single-family homes, it's gotta be along major corridors, arteries, where the roads can handle it, not not in the middle of
Right,
residential.
okay. That, what is it, 10?
And it also supports revised goal 3, which is protecting and strengthening existing neighborhoods by maintaining an attractive and balanced mix of land use zones and housing options that promote responsible growth or development decisions. So basically what we're saying here is instead of changing the look and feel of a single-family residential neighborhood, we're going to put the other option types like duplexes or fourplexes or whatever along the primary transportation corridors near businesses.
Okay, and that gets to, I talked a little bit about it last meeting, maybe this could be 10B, because that's already fairly lengthy, but I think we need to specifically be specific, and this is going to be wordy, and maybe it can be smithed down a little bit, but consider the amount of higher density, parentheses, mixed use, in residential neighborhoods and residential streets, especially narrow, no center line, no sidewalk swells, etc., residential type streets. Instead, consider higher density, mixed use, on already larger arterials that will be widened, Prairie, Hayden, Lancaster, where traffic from higher density will immediately exit into larger thoroughfares without impacting residential street traffic. Now, I get, that's a mile long.
Can't type that.
I know. It's that. Yeah.
But Donna, before you type, what I heard you say was what I meant for that to say. Are
Okay.
they different to you?
To me, that is more specific, and it talks about situations we faced
Right.
already where applicants have wanted to put higher density development on narrow, no center line residential streets and that do not ingress egress directly onto the larger arterials.
I just think it's really specific for a policy.
I know.
So I was.
Well, that's what I said, it can be wordsmith, but the idea is.
Next one,
What's that?
does this kind of specifics belong in the next layer,
Well, that's what
in
I was.
the action?
That's what I was.
I'd like about 3 minutes when we're all done here, because I'd like to lay something out that I think everybody needs to consider. Or I'd like to ask everybody to consider something based on this process already. And it ties in with what Keith said a little while ago, it ties in with a whole lot. So I think with a few little tweaks, we can eliminate months and months and months and months and months of this type of stuff, guys. You know, and again, it gets to managing with policies, goals, state codes, text, and standards. We can do everything I think we all want to do here, okay, without having to go through, come on, all of this stuff. Hire, possibly, thank you, hire consultants and open houses and we're going to be here 2 years doing this.
Are we seeing the whole of the 10 on the screen?
No.
No, there you go.
There we are, okay.
I can't see it, no.
I might even separate that intent to 10A, 10B.
Do we have two ideas that don't belong together in 10? Does the group feel that way?
Well, I think that at the top, you're talking about areas in the CBD.
Right.
Well, no, it's CBD,
Inherently
industrial
isn't.
parks, and along primary
Right.
transportation corridors.
And the red is in residential areas. So we do have two different,
Right.
So again, writing these, trying to keep them simple, trying to keep them short, trying to keep them understandable. Again, one of the big problems we have at P&Z with our existing goals and policies is they're wordy, they all point to each other, and honestly, you could pretty much support anything with the way they're written these
Right, and
days.
how do you apply them?
Yep, and applying them is.
I
so
can apply red real easy.
Right, but the point with these new revised goals and policies is to simplify them so that everybody can understand clearly what Hayden wants.
Right.
So if 10 should be broken up into 10 and 11, I guess.
Either way, 10, added as a new additional one, or 10A, 10B, however, I just really believe, based on what we've seen already a couple times, I believe.
Can we use something different other than higher density?
Well, that's the issue when it comes to what's going on in residential
Well,
areas.
but no, it's mixed residential.
It's mixed use is the primary, you get mixed residential's capped at 8 dwelling units per acre. That's a lot different than mixed use, which is basic commercial on the first floor and then 12 to 15 acre per acre type of thing. It's a totally different, mixed residential can be single, dual, double, whatever, triplex type of thing. Whereas the high density stuff is, for lack of a better term, apartments. And that's where, when you have a lot of people coming and going at peak hours and stuff like
I
that,
understand that.
But so you're talking about commercial.
yeah, well, not commercial, which, I guess
When you
it's
say
the old commercial with
apartments,
special
that's
use.
definitely-
Resident, where you have apartments on, because there is no really commercial with residential anymore, if I'm not mistaken. If that was changed to mixed use, instead of getting what a special or conditional use permit for the commercial to add residential, if I'm correct in how it used to be. So they added mixed use, which is basically commercial on the ground floor with residential on top.
See, I see, and Donna's doing a good job of boiling it down, but I still see all that saying the same thing as what just got lined out. If there's an existing neighborhood there, we shouldn't interfere with it. And where it doesn't, then we can consider other than single-family housing options. And I see the same thing, and I'm fine, I don't really care what words are used, but I think it's the exact same idea. You're saying consider. Having said that, for us to consider the amount of multifamily and commercial and residential neighborhoods, we don't want multifamily and commercial and residential neighborhoods, so
That's right.
we don't want that at all. That reads,
So we're saying
that's
consider the amount of multifamily and commercial and residential neighborhoods and residential streets. Instead, consider higher density. Well, yeah, that's much better, yeah. But it gets the point across. My main concern here is that,
I hate from
No, it
here
doesn't.
to here.
Yeah,
I would get rid of all this. I like this is fine, but we don't want multifamily and commercial and residential neighborhoods and residential streets.
well,
Yeah.
there can be probably a couple words that basically say, we don't want higher density multifamily in let's see, multifamily, mixed residential, where you get mixed residential multifamily. And, you know, that.
But 10 was all about the central business district. This is talking about the
Well,
arterial.
That's why I said
Adding that
It's not about the CBD, it's about concentrating,
On the
other
main,
than single-family homes, along arterials, by the light industrial area, and by the CBD.
So there's very little difference between the CBD, other than it has a huge
know.
amount of architectural design that
Yep.
mixed use also has a little bit of, and mixed use. Central Business District allows for commercial on the first floor or the whole lot.
Yep.
And it allows for multifamily on the top and the back of the lot.
Yep.
And mixed use allows for a mixture of commercial and multifamily.
Yep.
So there's very, I mean, as far as how you actually look at the zone, there's very different, not very much difference between those two.
Well, but
so
my,
you're talking about the main arterial going Lancaster, Hayden,
Right.
Prairie, Government Way, Highway 95, Ramsey, well, not really Ramsey, but those are the ones, right?
right, that's what I'm talking about.
And I think that that's what they were just saying. I accidentally made the mistake of saying the CBD when I was talking about those main thoroughfare areas as well. So
I just want to
we're
make
not
sure
talking about residential neighborhoods.
that it's clear, because we have an individual who represents a lot of the applicants, who I've had discussions with. And he said it, and others have said it, we just want to know what the rules are.
oh, yeah.
And that's.
And we keep changing them.
And that's kind of it. And I'd like to make it very clear that the people, I think, in the survey said, they don't want, I'm sorry, higher density, mixed use, in residential streets and stuff like that. And the point is to make it very clear when the applicants look at our goals and policies, and if they see policy, new policy for what's in the red, I don't care. As long as they see, they go, well, yeah, you know, guys, you're saying you want to put this stuff here on this residential street, pick a street, Miles, whatever, Orchard, whatever, you know, and they're saying right here, they don't want that kind of stuff on residential streets. So as long as whatever we do is not vague and the like, and that they see it and they go, yeah, we get it. Okay, if we want to do that kind of stuff, it has to be on the larger streets. I don't care what the wording is.
So, in response to that, would consider be a vague word? I mean, I hear we don't want to densify
I agree.
existing neighborhoods.
What if we left it as it was drafted, get rid of the word mixing and just say, consider where it doesn't interfere with established developed neighborhoods?
Or consideration should be
It's,
given to,
and just leave it as it is and get rid of the word,
Yes.
get rid of the word mixing.
I don't like
Don't
how it's-
densify existing neighborhoods, period.
don't what?
Don't densify existing
Well, the word-
neighborhoods.
Well, but we want to, again, it's tied to the first point, which is where to concentrate other than single-family homes. The whole goal of
Yeah, and
with
what
this
I hear
policy
is,
this is where we're going to build, if we're going to build other than single-family homes.
in major hubs like Prairie and Hutter, for example,
Yeah.
and existing neighborhoods that have now been rezoned to mixed use
Would not be affected because they're
because of the
established.
stated intention,
Right,
yes.
right.
But that needs to be very explicitly stated, because otherwise, you know, I'm going to
So
refer
Donna, let's
again.
get rid of word mixing in 10.
That's what I'm saying. This needs to be very explicit because I think it comes up a lot.
And it can happen, because I've seen it happen, where
Consider where it doesn't
single-family
interfere.
homes are wiped out and skinny homes, 3 stories high, are put in.
So if we wanted to,
It doesn't make sense.
it will. If we could use Ed's words here and get rid of along primary transportation, because these are saying the exact same thing to me.
Can I ask, there seems to be an aversion just splitting them into 2.
I think it's, splitting them into 2 would be a good thing.
Then we'll split them into
That's
two.
what I'm saying, be a lot, I think it'd be a lot easier, and a lot more clear.
Yeah.
So let's make a new 11.
Actually, we'll call it 10B at the moment.
Sure. Wrong way.
Wrong way. All right. Well, I think everybody needs to stand up.
You want to call it
I gotta go at 7:30. I've gotta
We
be
might
at 7:30.
before the environmental stuff, because I'm gonna let it rip when we get to that.
Oh, no. I really want to be done with this.
Me too. So do I, but you don't want to skip over stuff.
All right, there's 10 and 10B. All right, so we're good with 10, yay.
Can I say consideration should be, because consider again is that's kind of vague. Okay, we thought about it, yeah, whatever. But when you say consideration shall be given, or shall, no, because it's saying will, okay, will be given. So it's clear that we're going to say, look, if it's this type of stuff in residential, it's not going to fly.
So what's it?
Given to what?
Yeah, this doesn't make sense now.
Now, hang on a minute.
Given to what?
Shall be given to where it doesn't. Shall be,
To development? Given to what?
no, again, it's going to get to your higher density, your term high density, or flat out mixed
I'm just
use,
trying to understand it.
type of thing.
I'd rather, no,
Huh?
I'd rather keep zones out and just like talk concepts.
Doesn't interfere with established development area, other than single lots.
Oh, no, that is not true. That is not true.
So now you need to get rid of other than single family. Yep, you're right there. Yep, get rid of that.
Yeah,
Right.
Consideration will be given where high density business or established development areas along horizons.
So we all want to
Again,
keep-
given to
And then
what?
just put a period at the end
Yeah,
of corridors.
That's where there's single-family homes.
What? And cut the rest.
But in the
What-
arterial
what-
routes,
no,
we're
no,
not
no,
talking
what-
about single-family homes.
What is wrong with just saying higher density won't be placed in existing neighborhoods? Period.
Okay, consideration will be given to, given,
well, now we just eliminate, the key part is, again, residential streets. Higher density / mixed use, whatever you want to call it, related to being placed on residential streets. As opposed to, we want it on larger arterials, not in residential streets. And that's what I would like the policy to indicate very specifically, that we do not want higher density in interior residential streets, but we want it on larger arterials.
Yeah, go for it.
So
Say that.
Ed, for example, like let's say you're going east off of Government Way on Dakota, okay? Is there a period where that is no longer part of the CBD and then it becomes a residential street?
On Dakota,
Yeah.
east, if I'm not mistaken, almost everything on the east side of Government Way is pretty much residential neighborhoods.
With the one in particular I'm talking about, there are 2 businesses on the corner, on the north side and the south side of Dakota
And Dakota and what?
and Government Way. So-
Well, yeah, that's an intersection.
So as soon as you start going east, where does it become a residential street?
Footage designation?
Yeah.
Government
We
Way.
have to be, if we're gonna get specific, we're
Yeah.
gonna get that
I
specific.
see, I'm looking at, what is this, well, La Casa is farther south down there. But it looks like, I mean,
Used to be Trademark Mechanical, was on the north, now it's that jujitsu facility and just to the south.
Ed, what about this?
yeah,
That's what you're trying to say, right? Put the higher density housing options along primary transit. In other words, you don't even have to talk about narrow streets and all this other stuff, because you're saying, put it here. that automatically by default says you're not going to put it
Right.
where
Well,
you've
then-
got,
Then what that would then allow is if you look at the future land use map again,
Yep.
on Ramsey, between Dakota and Hayden,
yep,
that whole area, and there is not an it's a lot of open land right there.
okay.
Okay, and then again, you have, I don't mind it fronting on, that's another thing I was gonna, that we talked about, is that I think needs to be a code text change related to mixed use. And if you look at the Carrington Apartments,
That's a lot better.
they're back, I measured it on the
Still bad.
accessory tool thing.
Is that better?
And those go about 300 feet from the street.
Isn't that getting to the same point, we're just doing it from opposite angles, we want to talk about residential,
Yeah,
we want
to
to
the
just say,
south.
we're going to talk about
And
the
that's the
corridors.
type of thing where, come up 300, 500, come up with a number. So that
residential in there.
Yeah.
it can only be, in that case, 300 feet off, and everything for the most part is then forced onto the bigger street. When you allow them to run all the way between two blocks, they're going to be taking whatever that is up there, Dakota. They're going to be exiting, and especially on Ramsey and stuff like that. What I think we need to do as far as management of the ingress, egress of these higher density areas is to, for lack of a better term, force them ingress, egress on bigger streets and prevent them from finding the shortcuts through the residential neighborhoods, because that's what everybody's doing everywhere right now. Everybody's looking for the shortcut, and all of the streets are getting, there's traffic on these no center line, narrow, formerly rural roads that's not really
So-
all that good.
So Ed, when you're talking about footages off of the main arteries, is that something we do in policy, or is that in a
Be
different
code, wouldn't
layer?
it?
Well, I think the idea with this,
I
Mayor,
don't
is if we make
disagree
the
with you.
policy to say this, that to me, at least in my mind, forces our flum to now squeeze the purple
Onto
next to the
arteries.
arterials, where
Right.
now it's a little thicker
Sure.
than we all like.
Right, and that's what I thought, I don't think I originally, a couple weeks ago, a month ago, or whatever it was, talked about that, we need to redo the purple, because just the optic of this is, people look at it, and people who don't measure it and don't think, and they go, that's a purple cloud.
Well, and I think we're
Okay.
headed that way.
But if you put it in, I believe it would be a code text to the mixed use code probably, if you were to say, whatever mixed use shall be no more than, pick a number, 400 feet, pick a fair number, north or south of, or from the center line of, whatever the proper terminology would be, so that, in effect, you look up at length, we would, if we want to put high density, put your rows, if that's what it's gonna be, on these streets. And something I don't know, we talked about we aren't gonna have any high density. If we look at what's going on behind Target right now, which is our southern border, basically,
No, that's
do you
good.
know what's going on in there?
Oh, my gosh.
Okay? That's our southern border, and my understanding, there's gonna be hundreds, if not, who knows? And a lot of those people are going to be, those are gonna be homes for Hayden, people who need homes and stuff like that. So that affects how much we really need, because, everybody, I love the response I just got. Whoa! Everybody knows what's happening, and what that's gonna do, they're gonna shop up here and stuff, which is gonna be good, but thinking, that traffic that's gonna be coming off.
So has anybody got objections to 10B? I think it meets what Ed and I have been talking about
Yeah.
mostly.
Can you go scroll up so they can see what you did to 10 as well, though?
Yeah, we just cut 10 in half. So we just basically reworded the second half of 10 and stuck it in.
Just made it 2 short ones.
Yep.
Okay.
Everybody good with that? All right, let's press on to
Yeah, that's
11. All right, this one, I'm not gonna lie, I got a real unhappy spot that we gave away a nice piece of our CBD to a non-taxable entity. So that's
I
why.
too regret that one,
Which one?
the school.
Oh,
I remember that night
So
vividly.
I just suggested a rewrite that would make it much simpler.
Except they don't pay us tax. They don't. They're exempt. That's, yeah.
talk about Hayden government way, the
Yeah.
old school,
Yeah.
shut it down.
What was exempt before?
Right, but we had a wonderful opportunity to put some business in there.
Oh, yeah,
And we
I know.
moved it.
Well, wait a minute, so your original write-up for 11 says, minimize uses in the CBD and commercial that do not create jobs and generate other property tax revenues. So
Yep.
basically, you want first businesses that create jobs.
And
pay taxes.
pay taxes.
And pay taxes.
Yes.
Okay, so
Blow it up again?
prioritize business development in the CBD that creates jobs and generates property tax. Period.
Yeah, we're saying the same thing, just the opposite.
Yeah.
I'm trying to say, don't allow non, and you're saying.
You're
promote-
talking about negative rights, I'm talking about
Yes,
positive rights.
yes, but it's,
Minimize or promote and flip everything around.
yeah, so
I think it's written in a negative way because of how we experienced that last.
yeah, and yeah, it was always, yeah, so I don't care, the point's the same to me.
Okay, I'm good with that. That clarified it for me.
Yes,
You wanna
Lisa?
switch it or not?
Whatever the group feels.
As is or switch it?
I think prioritize some things
Yeah,
that
The
create-
positive.
I like the
Yeah,
positive
yeah,
better.
too.
All right, so 11's getting rewritten
It
down.
reads better that way.
Okay, so you want to,
Prioritize establishing or maintaining
Oh, you have it
uses
too.
in CBD and in commercial
this?
items that do create jobs
do it.
and do generate property tax revenues.
So what are you guys trying to keep?
Create
Is
jobs.
that churches or?
Yes.
Okay.
And other things that don't pay us taxes, it's a friggin' our CBD.
Yeah, I got it.
We should be making jobs and tax revenue out of that real estate instead of,
Is that the building that looks like a school?
It was a school.
That was a school.
Yeah, and what is it now? It's a church?
church.
Well, it's still a school. It's just a church school.
And they're tax exempt.
Yep.
No, I won't go there.
And can we spell out CBD?
I did.
Oh, you're awesome.
Positive asset.
No, I think it was.
Instead of just over just say and generates.
And, yes,
Yeah,
and
get rid of
generates
the comma.
property,
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, there you go. Generates.
generates, yeah.
All right, good, 12?
Put a TD bar in there, I suppose.
Whoa!
Take that point.
Not in the CBD, you
Not the CBD.
Hey. I'm picking you out.
All right, so same thing, we're encouraging, so the idea with 12 is we can't come out and say no Walmarts, we can't come out and say no big stores, but we can say we're going to encourage small-scale retail and service business.
Yeah.
Is it against the law to say no
or-
Walmarts?
It would
Not
probably look really bad,
citizens.
yeah.
It's too late.
I mean, municipalities all over the country have been doing that
Lifestyle
for
for
years.
the citizens.
I don't know, I would sidestep the question and just say we're going to encourage,
I think what Tom's hinting at though is that you can develop and encourage policies that limit the scale of the size of retail. So if you're promoting small scale retail, you might, in your ordinance, be very specific to say no.
No box stores.
No, you would say no buildings over 10,000 square feet.
Got it.
Minimum size for a grocery store starts about 10,000 square feet.
Just know that Walmart has in production for the last 10 years, a neighborhood Walmart.
yeah.
And they're smaller, but it's still a Walmart.
And for what it's worth, the, and attract to live work, play lifestyle for citizens was out of our citizen survey too. So
Yeah.
that's in there on purpose.
Okay.
All right. Oh, yeah, her, get rid of her, who put that?
Who wrote that?
Who wrote that?
Must be a Navy guy.
All right, let's go to 13, if that's all right with everybody.
So I have suggested edits to that that
So
just,
establish pathways that allow,
What would you want different on that?
I don't think we need the second half of that, but the first half, I guess. I mean, the idea was to promote walking and bike paths, that's the idea.
Can we combine?
I just don't see where that is government's business, to be honest with you.
It's laying it on the developer, saying when you develop,
Yeah, but it's a policy that is trickled down from government and.
sure,
And in spirit, I don't disagree with you,
Right.
because that's the kind of lifestyle I like, but that's not necessarily the kind of lifestyle everybody likes. Some people, you know, and what there ends up being is a sort of sentiment, well, bike paths are good, roads are bad, and we don't.
Well, we don't want that. So the idea with, goal 6 and the policies that support it are basically my thoughts to combat traffic. Traffic here is getting worse, everybody complains about it, so now we're telling the developers, hey, encourage this stuff. You know, if we build a bike path, maybe somebody will ride a bike. If we have some internode, or
Connectivity.
yeah, some connectivity between neighborhoods, maybe, you know, you'll give your kid $5 and he'll walk down to the grocery to get his milk instead of getting in the car. It's not a matter of forcing people to say, thou shalt not drive. It's just encouraging us to have options. So if there's a better way to do that.
Want to use the other option.
And it's not saying bike paths instead of road, it's saying bike paths through the middle of the neighborhood, in between houses.
Yeah.
Kind of like Coeur Place, or how your neighborhood is right now. You've got that nice path.
It's right behind my house.
Yeah, well, that one. Well, the other one that goes throughout,
I
like
actually
cattle
own
drive and all that. Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is the first half of your comments on 13, it's a push to me, either way is fine.
Okay.
I-
I express my sentiment, I'll defer to the consensus. In the
What are you guys' thoughts?
Combine 13 and 15.
No, because nodes are, to me, I want them
That's different.
to stand on their own.
No, 13's good the way it is.
Okay.
All right, what are you guys' thoughts? Change 13, keep it the same?
I think it's good where it is.
Fine. Fine, all right. 14, ample parking that encourages foot travel amongst CBDs, and you said provide ample parking for vehicular access. Yeah, 14, I don't care, it's a push, one way or the other. You guys look at what Tom suggests for 14, they both say the same thing to me.
We're talking about central parking lots, so people have to get out and walk up and down the street.
That's the goal, is we want parking so that people spend money in Hayden,
Not
right?
just drive in.
And again, I have a very specific example where parking was wiped out in a neighborhood where I used to live, gone, and it has disincentivized people from shopping in that business district.
Well, hopefully by saying provide ample parking, that won't
I
happen,
think
right?
14's good the way it stands.
I'll defer to the group. I'm fine with either way. They both say the same thing to me.
Yeah.
So I don't care if we want to put Tom's edits in there.
Did you have
Leave it
a
as is.
comment, Lisa?
Only anecdotal one, which is parking is always a problem. There's never enough or there's always too much. There's not a single problem.
Matt, any thoughts on
Every
this one?
community that I'm talking to.
Fine.
Well, we definitely don't have too much.
All right, I know we only have like 4 more to go. Are we getting numb in the brain? Because there's a
No,
lot of
let's get it
just
done.
do it,
Yeah,
just
let's get
do
it
it.
done.
We're close. I gotta.
Okay,
get
let's
out.
just keep the pencil sharp then, okay? So we'll go, all right, we'll roll to 15. So this is retail and service nodes. And,
So
go ahead.
how do we define neighborhood appropriate retail and service nodes in the next layer?
I think it's already in there.
So there's a map in the appendix that defines
Right.
where we believe we may want them. And
Right.
the only way that you can get one is to come in with a conditional use permit showing that you have met the design standards that were established for a neighborhood commercial node.
Okay. Okay. I think the idea behind them is an important one, I think. So, I believe 15 the way it is.
So Tom, I'm looking at your edits, I like it except for the 2 CBD because neighborhood nodes are to be scattered throughout Hayden.
Well, that was like an edit to explain my thought process there.
Yep.
I know what the intention here is, like if you want to go get a carton of milk, you go to the little neighborhood node.
Yep.
You still go to the central business district for important stuff like your doctor's appointment or whatever.
Yep. So I'm good with 15 except for 2 CBD as Tom has proposed, but I'm also good with the way it's written. So let's get the group's vote so we can keep going.
Can you explain yours again?
Okay, so let me look, Chris, neighborhood.
It's just worded different, it's the same idea, I think. Yeah, I mean, I think, my personal thoughts are, I think,
I'm good sticking with the
you sure?
If everybody believes that the way you wrote it originally accomplishes the same goal as what I edited, then I'm fine keeping it the way it is.
Okay, because I'm happy again, I'm happy either way. Group, thoughts?
I'm okay with it.
Wait,
It's written.
All right, 16.
Okay, get ready.
All right, 16 and 17 are where we're going to protect, preserve, and be stewards of our natural resources. Let's see, land use decisions will consider preservation, enhancement of natural resources, requires setback. I like the preservation of historic structures.
So does anybody need me to explain why I added all that?
The only question I have is this too specific for a policy? Like, would this be the next layer down where we talk about setbacks and stuff like that?
Capricious and burdensome, that's pretty, what's it mean? How do you define it?
Okay, so, and we can
16.
wordsmith this, there's a balance
I'll be right
between environmental regs that are capricious and burdensome, and I've seen them abused to prevent legitimate development. The other side of this is nothing. And then there's no way to protect natural areas, which we all agree in this time are important, you know, especially where we live here with the aquifer, that we want to protect the aquifer. It's our source of drinking water. So my idea is that this will drill down to specific codes that say that, okay, if there's an existing riparian area, wetland, stream, there will be a specific setback to preserve that so it does not get wiped out.
Wouldn't that have to be put into code eventually? If this is adopted, wouldn't you have to create a code for that?
Absolutely, and there is one at the county level, and it's very reasonable. It's not burdensome and it's not nothing.
I guess I have a question about the.
Are we at 19 yet?
Just simply because.
Okay, I'll
what's
answer your
previous?
question.
What's previous to this?
There are regulatory agencies right now that identify wetlands that we have, say, up on the plateau to the northeast of Hayden. The National Wetlands Inventory. You can drill down to the meter level and I'll show you where they are. And then on a previous land use decision, 4 different agencies, 2 state and 2 federal, weighed in and said, yes, this was an area that should be protected.
I guess my question is, instead of saying previously identified, which protect natural resources and environmentally sensitive areas, and then we can identify what those are within our plan.
So,
What was the last part again?
So just have it say require setbacks and infrastructure which protect natural resources and environmentally sensitive areas.
I think if you put previously identified might allude to the fact that, is it previous to the comp plan being modified? Is it
Previous
What
to
if-
the pending application.
What if it, yeah, previously, but what if it's something new that comes on subsequent to?
well, if it's something new that comes on, then it's not a natural area. This is something that God created before we moved here, and we want to keep it. That's my kind of perspective. And I'm trying to be intentionally general in my statements here. So I just threw it all out there. I'm happy to hear people wordsmith and, you know, and
What are you guys' thoughts on the consideration of the preservation of historic structures? I like that.
yeah, I think that's good.
Can we add that too, Donna?
It's there.
It's there.
Oh, sorry.
It's already there in the original one.
Oh, sorry, I wrote that.
You already did that.
I just saw red. I'm ready, Tom. Let's see.
Well, that could be said
What
too.
kind of red?
Ready?
So the other thing here is, so I described what my intention was with setbacks. As far as infrastructure, this would be like if you had a subdivision adjacent to something important. You want to make sure not only is it set back, but also that whatever activity goes on there does not affect the adjacent sensitive, environmentally sensitive area. And that would drill down the specifics in terms of codes.
So we could easily develop codes that were directly pointed at this.
I would hope
policy.
so. I'm not the expert in this.
Well, I think that there will be further drilling down, and that
No.
we would do things that would be specific to that.
I believe we need to protect our natural resources and be concerned about how development through the city and as it has impact on the aquifer. There are issues happening where we may not be able to discharge our wastewater from the sewer plant into the Spokane River. So the other option is you pump it into the aquifer. That's related to growth. So this is a big issue. We already have one city, Bellevue, Idaho, that they have an aquifer underneath it, and there's a lot of farms, and they suck the water out of the aquifer. The state had to come in and say, you can't just keep drawing it down and down and down. So they're taking their treated sewage water and pumping it into the aquifer.
Phoenix has been doing that forever.
So, you know, this is a big issue that Tom has brought up. It's not just about maybe a stream or a wetland that's northeast of us. This has to do with our water source. And look at California. I think they're already saying treated sewage water is what you're going to be drinking.
Well, I like adding in there setbacks and whatnot from the natural areas. I
Break
think
this
that's
one up into
good.
2 sentences like Tom had. I like
I
that
think that's
better.
a good addition.
Start with land use decisions will also consider.
It's more like code.
It is?
So,
The preservation of historic structures? Oh.
Capricious and things.
Oh, no, not that part, sorry. What you have now, what I'm saying is where you have the semicolon. Just start a new sentence.
Would it be better to say,
And then just say
instead
land
of
use
and
decisions.
consider the preservation, to say to consider the preservation and enhancement? Like the reasons we're identifying setbacks on infrastructure,
Will also consider preservation of
to
structures.
consider the preservation. and
Also
enhancement.
consider the preservation. That works.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, we found it.
Nope. There. Historical structures. Is that all right? All
Oh, because you've already done the environmental up
yep.
the top.
right, everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
Go for it. Yeah, it's
Okay,
good.
swear.
Let's move on.
Okay. And then 17 was the environmental impact analysis will be, so instead of completed, you wanted required. What's the difference there?
Yeah.
Where?
Mandatory.
What specifically?
17,
17.
required. You said required instead of completed?
Yeah, again, after championing environmental causes, I can also be honest in observing that environmental impact analyses are used as literally as a weapon to stop development. And so it leaves, to me, when I read that, it leaves open the possibility of some special interest party in the future saying, well, here's how we're going to stop this. We're going to require, and they drag it on and on and on, and it never gets resolved.
I apologize, I'm not getting the difference between completed and required. So as drafted, it says
Complete.
this will be done. You're saying, no, we're just going to require
In
it.
this case, It would be more like a vague requirement rather than a specific requirement.
Vague requirement?
Yeah,
I think we want to.
I'm not articulating myself really well.
Yeah, I apologize, I don't
I
understand.
don't think that completed is blunt enough.
Yeah, that was, to me, the completed was like, you're gonna have it done or you're, that's how it is.
In all cases. I don't want environmental impact analysis.
Yes, if it's previously undeveloped acreage, yes.
Yeah, the compromises.
So every farmland gets an environmental impact analysis?
Well, it was an idea. If it's a dumb idea, you can tell me.
So it's like,
I'm just trying to put your, I'm trying to understand your parameters.
That was the parameter. I'm not saying it's smart. I'm not saying it's lawful. I don't have a PhD in municipal development. I just got my experience here in Hayden.
Okay, I'm going to withdraw my comment there, okay? Because I can't seem to properly defend it.
It's okay.
But,
Okay.
So let me ask, do we need 17 with how we've rewritten 16?
They're different.
Did we have environmental impact analysis in our previous goals and policies? Was this something I stole?
I don't know, but I know we have additional studies, so, in our code.
I mean, is this even lawful, practical?
I'm looking up something, hold on.
Okay.
while she's looking up, can you give me an example of what you were thinking of?
Me personally?
Yeah.
That if we had a farmland that somebody wasn't gonna put in something that was gonna destroy, for example, compromise the aquifer, an environmental impact analysis as a layman would tell us that.
Okay.
Hey, if you put this 500 shopping center and apartments or
You
whatever.
know what, I agree with that
we're damaged.
100%.
All right, so while Fauna's looking that up, let's jump to 18. I think that's pretty straightforward. Anybody got issues with 18?
That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
You don't.
We don't? All right, so I guess then we're just
The
on 17.
closest thing you have is protect lives and property from environmental and man-made risks and hazards.
Okay, but the idea again was supporting what Matt said earlier, what Tom had said, which is, you know, we've got some undeveloped land on the prairie. Somebody wants to build, you know, the next super center and a word out there, that somebody's gonna have to do an environmental impact analysis that says it's not gonna ruin an aquifer. That was the idea.
I think that you can leave it the way it is. You're going to want to put some guardrails in code as
Okay.
to when an environmental impact analysis would need to be done. Because the way this is, anybody developing anywhere is gonna need to do an environmental impact analysis.
If it's previously undeveloped land.
Well, that's what
What about
development
an
is,
infill, 1 acre
previously
lot?
undeveloped land.
Well, not if it's like, if somebody's got an old dilapidated trailer home, that was
Well,
developed and.
but the
now it's
pocket
being-
Every
lots,
minor subdivision, every
Yeah.
subdivision that comes in is going to be previously undeveloped acreage.
yeah.
Okay,
So code will have to say how many acres, certain
Okay.
areas.
I'm just trying to be a hard-ass environmentalist.
You're gonna wanna define and do a little more work on what you mean by environmental impact analysis, because there's multiple different types of studies.
I'm sure.
Okay,
I'm-
but in the next layer.
Yeah, you don't have
But
to.
So is
it's good
everybody
for
cool
where
with
it
this
is.
as it's written then?
Okay,
Find the way that.
yep.
Okay.
I haven't heard of it,
The only thing I wanted to add is,
Pause.
what's that?
Lisa's having heartburn over it. Pause.
Okay. Kick in. Kick in.
I'm pausing for effect.
A good pause.
I think that if your intent is specific to environmental offset that you're trying to acknowledge, I think it needs to be very specific to that. I think you'd be right in EIA or EIA, whatever it is, that we potentially could have code that goes all over the place. Are we talking about protecting eagles? Are we talking about protecting a bull? Are we talking about protecting water? Are we talking about protecting a native grass? I don't, you know what I'm saying? It's just a little too broad for me. That's my.
Yeah, I understand. How about the compromise natural resources, link word previously undeveloped acreage? Between, after compromise.
Well, I was just going to add what Tom had first. Maybe that will help. Is that all right?
Yeah, okay, sure.
I did? Oh, yeah, I did do that, didn't
Yeah, that's
Does that
fine.
put some rails on it, Lisa?
That's fine. Good job, Tom. Lisa,
Yes, no?
I think we're trying to shoot for the
She
same
added the
target.
red there. So it gave a little
I
bit
would
more
have put it a different spot, but
specifics.
that's fine too.
And I don't know that we'll get where I'm.
So,
I don't have to.
I know Ed wants us to talk here. Before we do, Matt, you had given me some ideas. I wanted to wait until this process was through to see if all of your things were checked. That way we didn't start work if we already did it. So my question to you is, do you know, or do you need to go back and look at your email? Did you get everything that you wanted out in here somewhere?
I'd have to look.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got it here.
Because that's why I purposely didn't do anything with
Let
it.
Ed talk and I can.
All right, fire away, Ed.
Okay, I guess maybe this can be answered quickly. We've done the goals and policies now. The action plan is next step.
No.
But
What's the next step?
We need to take it, you want to answer, you want me to answer? So we're going to take the stuff to the consultant and say, how does this affect the rest of the comp plan?
The
So out of
chapters.
that, what is that?
the rest of the chapters.
The rest of the chapters, including the master plans, the comp plan. So they may go through and say, this is how it affected this work action item, which I don't, and it's not called that properly. It might affect this chapter of the comp plan, this paragraph, and they're going to advise us what would need to be changed in the comp plan.
Okay.
Based on what we've changed. So that would include the FLUM, that would include all kinds of stuff.
And that's statutorily required that we do that? No, it's not.
No, you don't have the manpower in these four walls to do that, but it needs to be done.
Okay. And an approximate cost, can we guess that?
We'll have to send it out.
Okay.
We do have money left over, as I
Okay,
understand.
my main point here is we do this, we go to the consultant brings it back, says, yeah, okay, you're cool, pretty much, you know, a little bit here, a little bit there. Do we then have to go through the sewer plan, transportation plan, park plan, or does that all depend on what comes back from the consultant?
They're going to go through it.
They'll go through your language, the verbiage in your chapters, as well as your master plan.
Okay, whatever they come back saying, they might come back and say, no, you're cool, the whole thing. You don't need to, or they could come back and say,
Yeah.
in which case we would then be doing these for who knows how long. This is my personal opinion here, okay, obviously. And again, Keith touched on it a little bit before. I think what we've done here, and with the goals and policies, and what we may add to our action plan or whatever may come in, but I think we've given ourselves the tools. What's the goal here? What is the end goal here? To better manage growth, density, and development. Anybody else? I mean, that's mine. Does anybody else have any other? That's my end goal, so that we can better manage growth, density, and development, particularly related to the survey, so that we can represent what the people kind of told us that they want. And I think with the changes that we've made in the last 2 years to code and text and the standards of approval and some of the adjustments to code and text that we talked about based on what we've done here, I think we've given ourselves the tool to better manage growth, density, and development as best we're going to be able to. I just don't want to see this thing go on for a year or 2 years, with meeting here for 2 or 3 hours, you know, going through this process. And I think we're able, I believe we have the tools now to meet our end goals, if everybody shares what I feel are my goals. And I just like to think about it. You know, before, you know, obviously we're gonna come together again, but a lot of it will depend on the response from the consultant, I guess, which I hope doesn't cost an arm and a leg. And nobody likes spending money for anything, but I guess if we have to do it, we have to do it. But I just don't think we need to go through the whole comprehensive plan. You know, and like I said, hopefully the consultant comes back and says, hey, you're cool, good job, and then we do some code tweaks to adjust to what we've done here.
That's what we're hoping for.
Because this, when did the comp plan start, 2018?
27.
Staff has been at this nonstop, basically, since 2018, if I'm not mistaken. Constant. Okay, they got it done, and then all of a sudden, I'm guilty, along with others, came and said, bullshit! We don't like this or that! And they've been taken, they're understaffed as it is, and this is a lot of work. And it's almost 8 o'clock, and they're here, and stuff like that. So if we can tie this up, because it's not going to be long before we're doing it again.
Do we have to go to the consultant?
It's a smart thing to do.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
So then the question is, I agree with what you're saying, but I think that question has to be asked after the consultant.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, when the consultant comes back, and depending on what he or she say, they say, what's the proper pronoun for the
It's
consultant?
a consultant group.
Yeah, you know, and like I say, hopefully they come back and say, hey, you're pretty good with this, you don't have to make much of this or that. But if they come back and say, this and that and
Well, I
this.
think we'll have to deal with that when it comes.
Well, you're
back
right,
again.
I just want to say, think about this. Do we want to be doing this 6 months, a year from now?
No, and hopefully if we get these tweaks here, we bought ourselves a new 5-year period.
Right.
Right.
Anybody got anything else to add tonight?
So I have a question. Fonda, will a consultant, or will you, having a chance to go through this, point out where we might have pushed ourselves a little bit too close to
They're not
the
going
edge?
to review this for red flags. They're only going, if you think these are your goals and policies, they're only going to take these goals and policies and filter them through the rest of your chapters to see
Okay.
where adjustments need to be made and
Okay.
on your master plan.
Okay.
And then based on that, we may tweak these.
I was gonna say,
Very
these are
slightly,
still not in
not-
stone. We
right.
may come back and go, you know what,
Not reinvent.
really.
Well, and
can
we
do
probably
this?
just have them give a peripheral look at it first, because you haven't even gone to public comment.
Right.
I mean, you're probably gonna come in and butcher all of this, say, we don't like any of it, start over. So
Are we at a point where we have to go to public comment?
you have to go to public
After-
comment to make any changes to your comp plan.
Yeah.
When the policies and goals are part of the comp plan, so that's a change, right? Yeah, okay.
Would that be?
Tom, you had something?
Would that be during planning and zoning or city council?
Both.
Well,
Well, that's again.
Just like his own map
You
amendment.
touched on it a little bit. When they come back, and this all originates with P and Z. P and Z, I guess hypothetically, theoretically, could have said, no, we think things great, and and we have already, and we don't need to recommend anything, we're good.
But you asked.
No, I'm just saying, but I don't know, at what point are we?
Yeah.
Where hypothetically or theoretically, P and Z could say, we think it's great, whatever.
Yeah, that ship sailed.
Yeah.
Tom?
Hypothetically, if we had a citizen of Hayden with prior experience doing exactly this, could we anoint that person or those persons to be a second set of eyes on updating the comp plan?
We could, my most honest answer is, does the person have relevant current experience, or is it something they did a long time ago? And two, we've already got so many cooks in the pot right now,
I get it.
I don't know that it's what it's gonna buy us, that's all. And that's just being honest. If we don't have anything else
You
tonight.
wanted me to look at,
Yes.
yeah, sorry, this is short. The only thing I wanted to add is, there's one land zone that I don't see it getting larger, the number of, or the acreage of, and we're supposed to, ag. So the question is, as a goal, should we try to maintain our ag land?
I don't know how you do that without breaking property owners' rights.
Well, but I'm just saying, is that something, I mean, eventually, should the city of Hayden be totally urbanized when it's all built out? Is that where we want to go?
I don't think you get to decide that.
Well, I think that'll go to intergovernmental cooperation as well, because, like, I've spoken to Mike Hill, mayor of Raptor, and he has a lot of the same concerns we have. And maybe there's something where we can work together as a countywide community.
Yeah, they tried.
What's that?
I said they tried with that last bond or whatever it was. They tried to,
The open space.
the open space thing, yeah.
I like it, and I'd like to see it happen, but I don't know how you do it legally.
I think that's a little bit outside of the,
Well, and the farmers are making nothing. So the farmers are my customers. The farmers in our area are losing money every day because we've made a bad decision 20 years ago where they could not burn the fires or burn the fields anymore. So the nutrients have been incapable of returning to their once glory that they had. And our farmers are making no money on what they have, and they can only do hay basically. So and hay isn't needed in our local community anymore. So that's one of the biggest issues. They're losing money every day. So
And
we have to
let's
figure
be
out how
honest,
to incentivize them to want
Yeah.
to keep their.
Right.
Do you know that there's a group of people trying to figure out those issues?
I don't.
most of those farmers are dirt poor too. They got their
Yeah.
entire investment tied up
Would,
in their land.
would it be premature to ask Mary for a motion?
I think we can have a motion to adjourn.
Because we can still talk.
I need to get home.
Yeah.
I've got a babysitter.
All right, there's a motion.
Second.
Hey, I didn't realize it was you on the tractor commercial.
Yeah.
You're famous.
Yeah.